Hey Mill City, it's great to have you guys back to our video series that we're doing called Know Your Leaders. And today we have one of our ministry associates, Miss Lissy Sandoval, with us. So welcome, Lissy.
Thank you.
Lissy, we got some questions for you to help our good folks at Mill City know you a little bit better. And we hope that this is encouraging to you out there as well. So Lissy, just tell us very quickly about yourself.
Okay. So my name is Lissy. I am 37 years old. I have lived in Lowell for most of my life. I'm married to Oscar. We've been married for 11 years. And I have two daughters, Annabelle and Bella. And I am a collegiate missionary at UML. Yeah.
Okay. So when you come into the walls of Mill City Church, so help us understand just a little bit more of what kind of things are you involved with? What are the ways in which you lead and ways you serve in our church?
Yeah, and so the primary way that I lead is through Christian Student Fellowship at UMass Lowell, and so I'm a minister there. I also do a lot of discipleship with different women and girls. I lead women's events, and I also am in charge of the outreach that Mill City does to our city.
Yeah, so a lot of the community outreach, so things like Merkin Elementary School, things like the festivals and different things that we do in our city. Lissy is one of the primary contacts of linking our church with those areas of service in our city. Okay, so Lissy, I'm going to ask you this question. This is a little bit more personal because it's actually one of my favorite stories of our church's history, is because I remember it was 7 years ago when you first came to Mill City with Oscar and Bella, and you were actually pregnant with Annabelle at the time, and you had just become involved, and I think, to say it lightly, like you probably had like a little bit of an agenda when you first came in.
Totally.
Okay, so not a little bit, all right.
Oh yeah.
And so there was something that you were looking for that you didn't necessarily see, and I love hearing this story because of how God changed your mindset, and it really is the mindset that really changed the trajectory of how you became in leadership at our church. So share that with everyone, because I think it's so good.
Yeah. And so when I came to Mill City, I had gone to school to study to be in ministry. So when I came to Mill City, like I thought, like, oh, once they see my gifts, like they're gonna totally want to put me in leadership, and that was what I was used to. And then I come to Mill City, and that didn't happen. And I started to kind of really be upset and grumble and feel like I wasn't, like just going through a lot of things in my mind and really wrestling with it in prayer. And during that time, I just began to really think about, like, why is Mill City structured the way it is? And you and I had a lot of conversations over dinner about that. And I would ask you questions about, like, what are you reading? Just to try to get into, like, what makes Mill City Church tick. And I think that during that process, like, I realized that I didn't have to be in, like, a leadership position in order to serve the Lord with my gifts. And so I realized that a lot of the reason why I wanted to serve in the ways that I wanted to serve was pride. And so I didn't like that. I wanted to get rid of that pride. And so I was like, you know what? I want to serve in a way where no one knows and I'm unseen. And so I started cleaning toilets at church. And I actually loved it. I don't do it anymore, but I miss it. And I still, will clean when I'm in church sometimes. But in that process was when the Lord really began to work in my heart that my gifts and my service is not about me, but about the body, and that I could serve the Lord even in, making sure the church was clean.
Yeah, it's such a great story. There are so many guys in particular, a lot of times, who will come up to us after first couple of meetings on campus or the first couple of worship gatherings they come to at Mill City, and they can play an instrument a lot of times as, I would like to be on worship team, or I play guitar, or I play drums, or things like that, or someone like in your situation who has different leadership abilities. And one of the things that I will often say, and some of our other leaders will say, is, we just want to encourage you to get involved and love the church, and get involved in a community group, and commit on Sunday mornings, and set up chairs, or get on some sort of serve team where you're doing a lot of behind the scenes stuff, because the folks who will serve in those behind the scenes realms start demonstrating a love and service to God's church that really starts molding you to be in more of the seen gifts and places in the church. And so I just love hearing that story, and you really have blossomed into a great leader at our church. Let's talk about your spiritual life for a little bit. Tell us just briefly how you became a Christian. So what were the circumstances? What led you to understand the gospel and for you to surrender your life to Jesus?
Yeah. And so I came from a broken home. I'm a family, we're 8 siblings, so big family. And, during my time as a teenager, like I was just very broken. I was very depressed. I was suicidal. And I just completely had no hope. And I was invited to a service at a Spanish church. And I heard the gospel for the first time, and it began to do a work in me. And so I didn't give my life to the Lord that day. I went the next day they had like a 3-day service thing. And at that service, it was the realization that the reason why my life was so broken was because it was void of God. And in that moment, I surrendered my life to God completely. And to be honest, like I had no idea that the change that was about to happen in my life. But pretty immediately, the Lord just began to do a work in my heart and to get rid of a lot of just sin and baggage that I had been carrying for my whole life.
It's so good. A lot of times some of you may look at some of us in leadership and you just kind of assume that if we're in leadership at the church that somehow we all just grew up in Christian families and mom and dad and 2.5 kids were around the dinner table every night. And but everyone that you're looking at, there are different stories behind that facade and behind that face. And for some of our leaders, they did grow up in that Christian environment. For others of us, we didn't. And so I love asking that story because I know that there's someone watching this who can relate to that story. Lissy, as you go week to week, day to day in ministry, what brings you the greatest joy in ministry?
Yeah. So I think the thing that brings me the greatest joy is sitting across a table with a woman who doesn't know Jesus and reading the gospel with her, and just for her to begin to see things in the scriptures for herself. I think that brings me the greatest joy. And it's kind of like a drug. I like to, it's just, it really is, to be able to see someone who is really seeking, who really wants to know truth, and to be able to be trusted with that process is huge. I think the other thing that really encourages me is seeing other women do that. So women who have been Christians for 10, 20, however many years, and for them to begin to do that. Because I remember when I started doing that, I've been a believer for 19 years. I started maybe 2 years ago. And so I remember when I started doing that, it really changed my life as a Christian. And so when I begin to see that change in women who have been believers for a long time, I just know like the work that God is doing, and it really encourages me.
That's awesome. That's good stuff. All right, so help us just know you a little bit better. What would people be surprised to find out about Lissy? So what does Lissy like to do? Where do you find your release? Hobbies? Any way you want to answer that?
Yeah. So I like to try new things. So sometimes, I'm always doing like a new thing. So like right now, watercoloring. I've started doing that, part of the reason because of quarantine. I also love being outdoors. I love hiking. I love to watch movies like Marvel with Oscar. We're huge Marvel fans. I come from a family of 8 siblings. A lot of people don't know that. So I have a very big family, 8 siblings, and I lost count of how many nieces and nephews. They're in the 30s somewhere. And yeah, I don't know what else.
You also like to garden.
Oh yes, I love to garden. I love flowers. I'm a little obsessed with flowers.
You have a great yard.
Yeah.
All right, so this is the fun part. So this is the rapid fire. All right, so don't overthink any of these. If you can't think of something on one, we'll just pass and go to the next one. All right. So the Christian book that has had the most lasting impact on your walk with God.
That's really hard because I read a lot. But I think the Master Plan of Evangelism.
Master Plan of Evangelism. It's one of the big ones on my list. All right, so 3 albums you've listened to this week.
I'm so boring. I've only listened to one.
Okay,
to an artist, like all of their stuff, and I don't even know their names. But the artist is called Towers.
Okay.
It's like a folk artist, and I'm in love with them right now.
Okay, check them out. Favorite sitcom?
Uh, The Office, I think. Yeah,
Okay,
The
that's
Office.
fair. Favorite TV drama?
Documentaries. I don't know if that counts, but it's
That
dramatic.
works. Favorite restaurant?
Longhorn Steakhouse.
Favorite movie franchise?
Marvel.
Okay. Preferred free day destination? Hiking in the mountains, chilling at the beach, or shopping at the mall?
Hiking in the mountains.
I knew you were going to say that. Okay. Of the three, Hulu, Netflix, or Disney Plus?
Books.
That's cheating. Okay.
None of the above.
Okay. Yes or no? Pineapple on pizza?
Disgusting. No.
Disgusting. I'm with you. Okay, Trump or Biden? No, I'm kidding.
No.
We're going to keep this family friendly. All right. Lastly, a meaningful Bible verse.
Yeah, I think it's definitely James 1. So consider it pure joy, my brothers, when you meet trials of various kinds, for you know that the testing of your faith produces steadfastness. And let steadfastness have its full effect, that you may be perfect and complete.
That is good stuff.
Yeah.
Mill City, you now know Lissy Sandoval better than you did 10 minutes ago. We're so glad that you're joining us for this series called Know Your Leaders. Tune in next week when we introduce you to another one of our leaders whom you'll get to know a little bit better through our interview. Have a great week.